So, as you all know, in India, as of 21st May 2020, medical colleges are 542 in number, offering both MBBS and PG courses. Standalone PG institutes are 64 in number, and these are recognized by the National Medical Commission. But there is a lack of uniformity in the standard of training and standard of exit exams. You will agree with me that there are premier institutes which offer excellent training, but most of the other medical colleges are definitely good, but they may not match up to the standard of the premier institutes that I was talking about. The standard of training in the premier institutes is such that comprehensive ophthalmology fellowship may not be really required for all people coming out of there, but for most it is required, and that is the reason why I am giving this talk. So what is the aim of any fellowship or super specialization? It is just about gaining more and more knowledge about one specialty, repeated exposure to the same set of scenarios, doing the same tasks n number of times until it becomes second nature, repetitive exposure and adequate hands-on opportunities for surgery, adapting to technology, which is an integral part of modern medicine. And I heard a talk from Dr. G.N. Rao recently, and he was talking about the three T's. Mentoring is all about shaping the three T's, that is inherent talent, guidance, usage for technology, and exercising tenderness. This is something which impressed me a lot, and I thought of putting it in my presentation. So what is the ideal layout of a fellowship program? The first 3 months, both mentor and mentee should understand where the fellow stands. A short stint in comprehensive ophthalmology does one good. Relearn. This is an opportunity to relearn basic examination skills. For example, slit lamp methods, because slit lamp examination may not be accessible freely to many students in certain medical colleges. It is either not in use, or it is covered, or it is under lock, or only the head of HOD can use it. Such stories we do here, and we have to train them with the usage of applanation tonometry and gonioscopy, which they may or may not have experience with. A dozen or two cataract surgeries to refresh the surgical skills after the joint fellowship is something that we also like to have as and when they join. So the bottom line I would say is, well, although there is um, the need for a specialization, one has to be a good comprehensive ophthalmologist first and a specialist next. I'm going to talk about Vitreoretina Fellowship as we do it in our institute. It is certainly a different type of specialty compared to other specialties. It is not taught like other specialties in residency, and usually needs to be taught from basics during fellowship. It needs weeks of practice to master basic examination techniques. The findings in the vitreous and retina are so subtle, similar, and diverse that it takes long to familiarize with even the common signs. For example, this is a case of a pseudodrusen in the first slide, drusen in the second, combined with diabetic retinopathy and hard exudates due to a CNVM in the third slide. And it takes nearly 3 months for the fellow to familiarize with these different types of yellow lesions. Safety margin for certain steps of surgery is so little that is only in the later part of residency that the resident can actually be allowed to do surgery, these steps under supervision or independently. The diagnostics and surgical equipment are prohibitively expensive, and it is difficult for most to start full-fledged solo practice. These are the peculiarities of the Vitreoretina Fellowship. So an aspiring Vitreoretina fellow must be good at small incision cataract surgery and preferably phacoemulsification too. A high level of skill is needed in these surgeries. The fellow realizes the low safety margin during certain steps when he does a cataract surgery, and learns tissue handling as well, especially when he does a small incision cataract surgery. So cataract surgery, according to me, is the commonest and also the most difficult. A good cataract surgeon can mature into a good surgeon in any specialty, a good VR surgeon definitely. And I believe that 100 plus score during residency and a little thereafter is desirable before entering a VR fellowship, although this is not a magic number. 1 week orientation to all specialties in the institute is something that we practice in our institute, so that the student gets to know all the facilities in the institute. He meets consultants, some of them may be luminaries in their field, and getting to know the staff and fellows is another advantage. And also they learn how the departments work. Mass work in medical college hospitals is in one way amazing. Really, from 9 to 2, the short OPD time duration that they have, they see more than 1,500 patients. It's really amazing how they can see so many patients. This versus the working style of a private institute offering fellowship results in a cultural shock to most fellows. So learning and relearning is a lot of is a big exercise when they come for fellowship, especially the soft skills, the hard skills. Anyway, they will learn, but the soft skills like communication skills with the patient, with fellows, with co-workers, teamwork in harmony, without causing any disruption of work, adaptability to the different situations that they would come across, would probably be the first year of in the would probably be exercise in the first year, and in the second year probably they can go to the problem solving and creativity. These are the 5 soft skills which are very important, but there is no time boundary that it was some things have to be done only in the first year and some in the second year. Every institute has its own SOPs, and this is the long list of SOPs that uh, we have in different institutes, and ultimately it boils down to discipline. So learning discipline or the way or following the way the institute works is something that the resident has to learn. 2 examination techniques to master. I'm sorry, the left slide is missing. It was about indirect ophthalmoscopy, the most important thing that we teach students in their at least if they've not learned during residency, they have to learn in indirect ophthalmoscopy and 90D examination are the 2 examination techniques one has to master to enter into a fellowship. A detailed retinal drawing is something that we insist upon to the fellows to learn, because during examination of the retina, if they have to make a detailed drawing, they will examine every detail, and the number of hours or minutes that they spend goes a long way in their experience in learning indirect ophthalmoscopy and also to identify the lesions. And they can cross check with the seniors and understand the inverted image and get a reorientation for that. And they also realize the importance of a drawing in pneumatic retinopexy and scleral buckling surgery, and also in the follow-ups. And a drawing check by a consultant is always a must, because that is where they come to know about the mistakes that they would have committed. Orthodox methods are best and also a good priming for exams. Methodical history taking, general and ocular examination, arriving at a differential diagnosis, zeroing down to the most probable diagnosis by elimination, and manage and discussion of the management is something that is an orthodox method, and we have to probably exercise this every evening. Every fellow has to be made to present a case at least for 10-15 minutes. This exercise has to go on every day. And one thing I believe in is to be a good technician first. Every fellow has to understand the machine and use the machine. They have to indulge in usage of the machine, learn to capture fundus images, do perform FFA ICGA, learn B scan, learn to acquire OCTA, and electrophysiology. So by doing only they will understand. So that is what I call the workshop model. Practice of why, how, what, why does gas expand? Why does a patient injected with gas does not have to not travel by air? How do you measure the drusen and so on? So this should be exercised at every step. Questioning is very, very important, and this way they learn the concepts and retain for long. Teaching in the OPD is something that has to be done. Point out every mistake, small or big, in the workup. Call to show a typical clinical symptom or sign. For example, this is an unmistakable picture of post-fever viral retinitis, which the student likes to learn. So also the dipping vein. This looks like a CNVM, but actually it's a secondary CNVM. Mactel has caused the CNVM in this patient. So you can see the dipping vein here, which we'd like to call the student to show. So there should be uniformity in documentation. Literature search has to be done whenever there's a rare case. An ILM drapes and also is something that I would like to call and show the student, especially when the student is new. And when there is something new or something very rare, I think a literature search should be asked for. And the next day, the patient, the student should be thorough with all the literature that is read and has to present it. For example, this is a case of optic nerve drusen, which I diagnosed as with retinitis pigmentosa, but it turned out to be optic nerve astrocytoma. So discussion in the department is very, very important with everyone else and also with the head of the department. Emphasizing importance of slit lamp examination. This is something that I want to tell, although it is basic. Somehow students, when they come into the retina department, they all just want to dilate the pupil, make the patient lie down and examine the retina and be done with it. They don't seem to bother much about anti-segment examination. Even if they examine with the slit lamp, somehow they tend to examine only the cornea, the lens, and the iris, and that's it. The conjunctiva and the rest of the bulbar conjunctiva and the lids are somehow missed. So these are examples of a trab, bleb, and a buckle, which has been missed by our students during the early part of the examination before they got mentored by us. So spending time so that nothing is missed is something that we would like to emphasize on in these patients. This was an example of a patient who did not improve after cataract surgery, excellent cataract surgery. The white opacity that you see here is something that was missed against the white background of the cataract or the mature cataract, and therefore the patient was not told earlier about the possibility of an amblyopia due to congenital corneal opacity or a corneal opacity at a younger age. So a methodical slit lamp examination is a must. And so this is what I'm trying to say is that an anterior segment examination is a compulsory exercise that the student should undergo before examining the retina. And one more thing that I like to emphasize on, the no cost and most useful test in ophthalmology. And that is, according to me, RAPD. No patient has to be left without a test of RAPD, and this fellow is penalized if they miss out on RAPD. Learning to include anterior vitreous examination on slit lamp examination is something that is not taught during MS or MD or DNB. And I think it's important for the students to understand Schaeffer's sign as a part of the slit lamp examination. Tailoring investigations based on clinical diagnosis is something that we have to practice. This should not be a senseless list of tests. HIV, for example, HIV and HBsAg test for a case of fluctuating refractive error where only blood sugar is required, or advising an MRI without testing the blood pressure in a case of papilledema where it actually might be due to an accelerated hypertension. So these are examples of unnecessary investigations. A prescription has to be neat and legible. They should not be overwriting. The name, age, date, and diagnosis has to be written clearly. There should be clear-cut instructions. For example, this physician's monitoring in case where solriamfetol is being prescribed is very, very important. Investigations that the patient needs along with this treatment, for example, that is written here, and the date of next review is also to be mentioned on the prescription pad, and this has to be very neat and legible. They should know the treatment protocol for most of the diseases that are commonly seen in the OPD. For example, this is a case of toxoplasma retinochoroiditis, for which a prescription has been beautifully written down in a very good handwriting. So they learn the treatment protocol by writing the prescriptions themselves instead of printing it. And so the importance of delaying steroids for 5 days after starting the definitive treatment with Bactrim DS and clindamycin. Importance of co-prescriptions with leucovorin, PPIs, and calcium when steroids are being prescribed, and the importance of special instructions like giving special instructions about GI disturbance in a case where clindamycin has been prescribed to rule out pseudomembranous colitis as a complication. So a reply to referring doctors also is something that is very, very important. With this patient, the student learns etiquette and art of letter writing, and also when we dictate this letter to the resident gets curious and feels like calling back the patient to see, and in the process gets to know about the importance of all the signs that I have mentioned in the letter. In the second year, the student is given a little more authority, more freedom and independent responsibility, put on peripheral postings, involved in discussions with consultants, And we also take sometimes pretend to take opinions from them so that they get some confidence. And we encourage seniors to teach juniors. Video editing, I think Dr. Krishna Prasad, Dr. Srinivas Joshi will tell us more about it, the art and the science. A sense of involvement in the surgery and understanding the steps of surgery will probably come when he's interested with the work of video editing. Community work is mandatory according to me, because this is an opportunity to exercise skills, both clinical and surgical. The student gets independent charge of patients, which adds to their confidence. The sheer number of surgeries that are available for achieving perfection is possible. They learn the ground reality of the socioeconomic status of the majority of the patients in the camps, and they inculcate compassion and empathy. So Professor G.N. Rao, whom I heard recently, less than a month ago, on YouTube, said, empower them with the three uh, H, that is hands, head, and heart. So empathy is very, very important. So first and foremost, this probably should have been the first slide. Like Dr. Apurva already said, they should love the specialty. You can't flog an unwilling horse, but good mentors can make them fall in love. And with the warning, I would like to leave you all and close my talk. The warning is from Nicholas Butler, American philosopher. An expert is one who knows more and more about less and less until he knows absolutely everything about nothing. So thank you very much.